All right, Jack. How you doing? How was Christmas? Hello?
I'm good, Michael. Christmas was great. How are you?
It was all right. Quiet Christmas for me as usual. Now, obviously, you're actually a professional boxer yourself. What can you tell us about your career?
hmm my career started back in 2016. I actually lost my debut. I went on to revenge the loss on my records. I've headlined York Hall a couple times. I've been on big platforms like IFL and Sky Sports. Um, I've fought for the Southern Area title, and I'm actually fighting for the Southern Area title again in March of next year.
It's interesting you mentioned you lost your debut, just like Bernard Hopkins, he lost his debut as well. Why do you feel
Mm.
you lost your debut?
I just don't think I had the experience that I needed at the time. I wasn't. I only had 10 amateur fights, which isn't a lot, and I turned over as a pro. But I was never really. I was never looked after a lot for a lot of my pro career at the beginning. I was up training by myself. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have really many good people around me, and like I wasn't sparring people my weight. I was sparring like middleweights and stuff, and I'm only like a super flyweight. So I just think I wasn't prepared properly for the occasion, really.
Okay, I understand. Obviously, things happen. I lost fights this year. I just think the only reason I
Mm.
lost them is because I wasn't fit. But I've got to prove myself next year. You've had a bit of bad luck with Ricky Little. I think he pulled out twice. But you're moving on now. You're trying to fight for the Southern area. Is it March?
Yeah, that's right, mate. Yeah, but yeah, Ricky Little pulled out a couple times. Like I think it was like 4 or 5 times altogether he pulled out with me, but it was only he pulled out twice this year. Um, but I got a fight in the end anyway. I had to go up a couple weights, and I fought a former African champion at super bantamweight, which is like 2, 3 weights above me. So things are looking. And as you said, I've got the title fight in March anyway. I've had to wait a bit longer for it, but things are looking up. Like I got back out. It was a good experience, and then and now we go again in March.
That's good to hear. It's just life, isn't it? I didn't realize it was 4 or 5 times he's pulled out. Obviously, he doesn't really want to fight
Mm.
you. I'd just leave him to it. Just obviously fight other people and progress your own career. Something that people have been talking about a lot at the moment is sort of what's going on with Dylan White. I did a video about it today. Uh,
Mm.
what do you have you been following the sort of progress where basically Dylan's been offered 5 million to fight Fury, plus I think there's pay-per-view and there's other sources of income, but he said no, he wants at least 10 million.
No, I haven't heard about it, but it just all depends. I mean, I don't know what Dylan White's fight purses normally look like, and I don't know how much Tyson Fury's fight purses normally look like. But Tyson Fury, I know, is one of the main stars now in boxing, so I'm guessing he's generating a lot of money into his sports with like pay-per-view and stuff and his views. Um, so I don't really know like what a general heavyweight nearly basically unification fight would generate. So it's a hard one. Like, is that is for obviously I know 5 million sounds like a hell of a lot to an ordinary person like me and you, but when you're at the top of the game in the heavyweight division, I'm sure they get a lot more. Like, I'm sure Fury and Wilder for their trilogy must have got way more than that. I mean, Wilder
Yes,
was asking for yeah. Wilder was asking for 20 million just to step aside. So if he's asking for when they was going to Fury and AJ were going to fight. So if he's asking for 20 million just to step aside, they must have been getting a lot more than just 5 or 10 mil. So maybe he's in the right, maybe he's in the wrong. I don't really know. I don't know how much they normally get.
it's a good answer, and to be fair, maybe I won't push you too much on it because, oh, look, I feel he's asking for too much, but then again, there may be stuff we don't know. Maybe
Mm.
his last fight, Dylan didn't really make that much. And obviously over the course of his career, maybe we'll leave it there for now. But, I wish him well.
Mm.
Something you can definitely, I think this is a question I really want to ask a fighter. A lot of people say Dylan White's scared. And I hear a lot of people, not just in this situation, sometimes they'll say fighters are scared. And I think you and me can both give very good opinions. For me, on a personal level, obviously, I understand I'm not as experienced as other people, but I've had fights. So I feel I'm entitled to give an opinion. Personally, look, I'm not scared of anybody. I'm more than happy to fight. I'd fight the YouTubers if I was famous enough. But I admit, obviously, I would try to make as much money as possible if I'm fighting people. Same for you. Can you sort of explain this to people? You've had fights. You're not scared to fight people, but you would obviously try to make as much money as you can. And the point I'm trying to make, the reason sometimes fights don't happen is not because fighters are scared, but sometimes obviously they want to make as much money as they can, or if they feel they're not getting paid what they're worth. So is that something you can explain for fans?
Yeah, I guess at the same time, it all depends on the fighter, really. I mean, as you said, I've been around the game like a very long time, and I've seen everything. I've seen people that are just solely there to get their Instagram followers up and just fight journeymen for their whole career, and they're more than happy with that. And then when big names call them out, they try and outprice themselves so they don't get the fight because they don't want the fight. And then you get other fighters that don't really care about money. They don't really care about fame. They just want to fight and they want to win titles. So, I extremely doubt that Dylan White is scared of Tyson Fury. I know people that know him, and I know his background and his upbringing. Like he was like from the streets. Like he had a relatively hard life, and he's taken on pretty much all comers. Like he fought AJ at like most people will wait until they get to the top and then earn big money. He fought AJ when he was on the up and coming for a British title. He could have just waited. That fight definitely would have happened down the line somewhere. He could have waited for the world title, but he took that fight early on. He lost to Povetkin by like a devastating knockout and then took the rematch straight after. So I would never question Dylan White's like mentality to fight, because I know he's a fighting man. And it's kind of like myself. Like I don't really care about money. I don't care about fame. I just like fighting. So it all really depends on the person you get. As I said, there's Instagram boxers and then there's real boxers. So it all depends on the person, really.
Okay, yeah, I respect that. It's a good insight to boxing. Obviously, you've been around for years now. Who are some of your closest friends in boxing? I know you know Adrian Martin.
Yeah, I know Adrian Martin really well. When I first went to get my medical, Adrian was like one of the first boxers I ever met, and we were speaking whilst we was waiting to get our medical. He's a good friend of mine. Loads of people like my coach Kieran and my other coach Barry. I was involved with them for many years. They're good friends of mine. Just people mainly like around my weight, like people that I spar and hang like and generally socialize with a lot. Ryan, who is one of my closest friends as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just people that I normally spar with because they're the ones you have more of like interactions with, really.
Okay, yeah, obviously I know Ryan. I've sparred him before. A conversation we've gone around in circles before is when we talk about boxing business. And look, there's basically two different ways you can look at it. I think there's people like you, you've got a very good approach to boxing where you just want to fight. And I admit something I've started mentioning in my videos recently. Someone like myself, I don't mind fame. It's something that I'd enjoy, and I'll be honest, yeah, I'd like to become famous as part of my whatever goals and ambitions I've got. When it comes to business, though, boxing business, I believe the more famous you are, the more tickets you're going to sell, the more numbers you're going to do. Is that something you think about? Is that something Steve Goodwin's told you about? And what do you do to try and raise your value in boxing? What do you do to try and help your ability to sell tickets?
Yeah, well, obviously, the more famous you are, the more views you're going to get, so the more money you're gonna generate. So it's all about, really. It's not even necessarily about winning fights nowadays. It's more about how you promote yourself and how you use your platforms or social media. I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong. If you're going to lose every fight, you're not going to become a superstar, because people want to see you win and so on and so forth. But if you look at someone like Jake Paul, he never boxed a day in his life, but his first fight, I'm pretty sure he headlined a Matchroom card, didn't he? After having no amateur experience, no white collar, so on and so forth, just because solely he was a genius at using social media and built up his platform on YouTube to to become basically a internet sensation. So it's not really about how good you are at boxing, or because I've seen fighters who are, yeah, I don't know if I'd say world class, but really pretty good, and they just faded away because they weren't able to sell tickets and they didn't really know how to use social media and promote themselves. And then I've seen other fighters who ain't very good at all, but they've been on like Anthony Joshua undercards and so on and so forth, just because they're popular and they can sell tickets. So it's just about how you use social media and how you can promote yourself, really, is how you'll get far in boxing.
Okay, as a fighter, what things would you like to see change in boxing? So what we've just spoken about, even though I am going to try and use that to my advantage, I'll be honest, I don't think it is fair in boxing. I don't think it is fair that, fighters are put under pressure. You got to train, you got to fight. And then on top of all of that, if you look at other sports, you just need to perform at your ability. In boxing, though, there's a lot of pressure in where they want you to do stuff outside of the ring as well. So, is that something you like to see change in boxing? And what other problems do you see in boxing?
Yeah, it's a load of crap, really. Like, for me to like get fights, for instance, if I go into like the whole ticket sale aspect of things. So if you want to fight a 4 rounder, it's probably changed a little bit now because tickets are more expensive. But when I first started, to do a 4 rounder, you have to sell a minimum of 60 tickets just to make the fight happen. So out of that first 60 tickets, you don't earn a single penny. Not one penny will go to you. That will go
Oh,
to the
really?
away fighter. So you're actually covering your opponent's purse, and then the money goes to your promoter or manager. And then anything you sell after 60 to 100 is yours, which I think works out as something like £1,100 or 1,200 or something like that. And then if you sell over 100, it then gets split with your promoter. So you split 50-50 after anything after 100. So for me to fight a 4 rounder, as I just said, I have to sell 60 tickets. So I have to get on my social medias. I have to start plugging, messaging everyone, which is a long process and quite stressful because hundreds of people will let you down. Hundreds of people will tell you you'll come in and then they won't come. On top of that, I've also got to train. And on top of that, I've also got to work a full-time job because the money at the low level is not great at all, as I just explained. You mean it's not it's not an ideal fight person or someone risking their health and so on and so forth. So I think ticket sales is a massive, just I don't know. I just think it's terrible. Like as I said as well, you'll lose so many top talents because they just can't sell tickets. Like, quite luckily, I'm quite a popular lad, so I haven't had much trouble, selling tickets. I've always managed to hit the target I need to hit. But then there's some people that ain't. So I think ticket sales is poor. Even when you fight for a southern area, when I was meant to fight Ricky Little, I had to sell 90 tickets just to make the fight happen. So, 90 tickets is a lot of tickets just to make a fight happen. And I didn't even earn a single penny out of that. So, that's poor in my opinion. That's the worst thing, and that's the thing I'd like to see change the most.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I enjoyed listening to that. I agree. I'd like to see it change as well. I think it's a very unfair and unrealistic expectation. You look at any other sport, you don't hear stories about. Well, I went to Manchester United recently. Also, I was in Manchester, so I bought the T-shirt. But
Yeah.
you never hear stories about, oh, Cristiano Ronaldo's got to sell tickets for the next game,
Mm.
or so and so. So it is a lot of pressure. And even for me, quick example, when I had my last fight, the one that I got dropped in, I'm not making excuses, but I'm just saying what the reality of a fighter's life is like. The fight, I took it willingly, but it's at a low weight division, so it's like I was killing myself. The week of the fight, I was killing myself to make weight, steam and sauna. And then yeah, I was trying to sell tickets. And then yeah, people were, back and forth, back and forth. So I thought, you know what, I'm feeling tired. I don't want to I can't be bothered going around the week of the fight. I sent all the tickets back. And then believe it or not, after I sent the tickets back to the promoter, the fight was on the Saturday. Then yeah, I think Tuesday, Wednesday, people started messaging me. All right, let's meet up. I'll buy a ticket off you. I said, well, I
Yep.
sent them all back now. Like, I'm not. Where was this energy before? And there was this one guy. We became friends at work. He actually sent me a few messages. Oh, well, I can't believe you haven't. What did he say to me? Oh, how can you get rid of them all? Blah blah blah. I was like, but
Yeah.
where was this energy 2 weeks ago? I said, mate, I'm not gonna run around the week of my fight. And one guy took him a ticket, but then he's saying to me, "Oh, I didn't realize the fight was in. He thought it was in London." But I said, "But
Yeah.
I sent you the postcode. It's not my." And I've met him, and he says he doesn't want the ticket anymore. I thought, fine, but I sent the guy the postcode, so I thought if you didn't check it, that's never mind. What do you enjoy most about boxing then? Because this is a sport. I mean, you and me have both chosen it. It's a sport where you get punched in the head. I remember I sparred a guy called David Pereira years ago. He's a boxing trainer. I remember he's just a trainer, but I left that gym. I left the gym that day. I sparred David. I left the gym with headaches, and that guy's just a trainer. So it's a sport where you're getting punched in the head. I understand it's a dangerous sport, but what made you take it up?
There's loads of things that I love about boxing. Like one of the main things would be it keeps me fit, it keeps me healthy, and it keeps my mind right. But the actual reason I actually got into boxing is quite a funny story. I was like, I think I was around 15 at the time, and it was when Ricky Hatton and Floyd Mayweather were fighting. I'd never watched a boxing match in my life, didn't like it, didn't actually really understand it. And then it was back in the old MSN days, and all my friends made a group chat, and they was like, "Oh, Jack, we want to come around your house and watch the Ricky Hatton fight," because they knew that out of everyone's mum, my mum would be the only one that would buy it. And I was just like, "Oh, lads, no, I don't like boxing. Never watched a fight in my life. Not interested." After a couple minutes of them trying to persuade me, I was like, "Oh, do you know what? Just come over. I'll get it because I can spend time with you lot." And I just remember that literally instantly, as soon as Ricky Hatton's ring walk happened, I was boom, I was just hooked on it and watched the fight and just fell in love with it from that moment on. And then on my 16th birthday, I actually started training for Rice District Boxing Club. And that's the story of how I got into boxing.
Okay, that's interesting. Who've been some of your favorite fighters over the years?
Obviously, Ricky Hatton was my all-time favorite. I like most of the British fighters because they're the fighters that I'm normally around. Obviously, I'm British myself, so they're the ones I'm normally around, like Carl Frampton. I really like Josh Warrington. I was a massive fan of Kevin Mitchell. But I also I like the fighters like, I always say his name wrong. Is it Gabriel Rosado? I think the American fella. I'm a massive fan of him just because I just love his attitude. I just love the way that he just gets in with anyone at any level and literally has never ducked anyone in his life. His record, he's got a very good record, but I mean, a lot of fighters have better. But the reason his record is the way it is because he will fight anyone, and he doesn't duck people. He doesn't avoid fights to get easier fighters to build his resume. He fights world champion after world champion. I mean, I think he's a middleweight, isn't he? In the middleweight
Yes,
division, if you
yes.
go through his resume, he's fought for everyone. He fought Golovkin, he fought Danny Jacobs. And he flies all over the world. He doesn't just stay in his hometown. He goes to country after country, going into people's backyards, and sometimes he gets the victory, sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he gets robbed. But yeah, he's someone that I really, really love watching.
No, you're right. Obviously, he's got a lot of losses, but when you're taking on the high level of competition he's had, yeah, you're gonna lose to people. People that are more like what happened to you in your debut. Well, yeah, people that have got more experience, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mentioned so Eddie Hearn was talking about a fight recently. So I was in Manchester for the Chisora Parker sort of media week. I got a chance to meet both of them, and yeah, it was a good fight. But to me, I used to train at Derek's gym, and that's like 2011. Derek's been around a long time. To me, his punch resistance is gone. He's not the same fighter he used to be. And now Eddie Hearn's actually saying he's actually talking about Deontay Wilder versus Chisora. What do you think of that
Mm.
fight?
I mean, I think it would be an entertaining fight, but I mean, I don't think it would be a sensible fight for Chisora. But at the end of the day, I guess it's all about really where I don't really see Chisora's career going anywhere now at this stage. So I guess it's all about having as many big fights as possible and getting as much money as he can. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with the fight getting made. As I said, I think it would be an entertaining fight, and I think it could potentially headline most places or definitely be on the undercard of a good fight. I mean, if you was going to watch a world title fight or something and you saw Derek Chisora versus Deontay Wilder on the undercard, I mean, you're kind of getting your money's worth, really, in you.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, I'm not
So yeah.
denying. I'm not denying it's an exciting fight. I mean,
Mm.
I'd enjoy watching it, but I've known Derek. Like, even when I met him, I haven't met him in years, and he recognized me straight away. So, and he even said to them, like, they were trying to get him out of the press conference, but he said, no, let Michael do an interview. I'd enjoy watching it, but I like the guy. So,
Mm.
I don't want to see Derek getting blasted out by Wilder. I just think that would be a
Yeah.
bad fight. But what sort of fights would you like to see in boxing?
What fights would I like to see?
Yeah.
I hate this question because I haven't prepared an answer. Like there's so many boxes, and like they all just go out of your head.
Go ahead,
But
okay.
I'd really like to see. I think a fight that's close to happening is Gamboa versus Devin Haney. That's probably one of the biggest fights I'd like to see. And then I'd like to see Lomachenko fight the winner of that. I think again, as we was talking about Rosado, Gamboa is another one. Like, I've got a hell of respect for him because he's done it the hard way and fought everyone and hasn't ducked no one. And again, come over to everyone's backyard and beat everyone in their own backyard. So that's another. I think that them two fights, like with Haney and Gamboa San, the winner of that fight's Lomo. They're two great fights that any boxing fan should, that would be a joy to behold to watch that. Obviously, Fury versus Usyk's another one that's up there at the moment. Lawrence Okoli versus what's the other the main guy in the cruiserweight division?
Bredis.
Yeah, Lawrence Cody versus Bredis would be a good one. But I'd actually like to see a lot more like fights at the lower levels, like domestic fights start to happening. Like I felt like a couple years ago, the British fighters, like some of the best fights are at like Southern area English and British level because fighters were always fighting each other and they were fighting the best that Britain had to offer. But nowadays it seems to be like you're just fight for a vacant title against someone that you're going to beat, and you'll do that until you pretty much reach world level. So I'd like to see more British domestic fights. I'd really like to see Conor Benn versus David Avanesian, but I don't think that fight will happen, to be
No.
honest. I'd also like to see Conor Ben versus Josh Kelly. I think that would still be a great fight. And that's another great British domestic fight. But yeah, there are a couple off the top of my head.
Yeah, those are good few fights. I'd probably like to see all of them as well. Don't think they'll happen, especially
Mm.
Ben Avanesian. That's not going to happen, but those are good fights. And my last question for today, I've recently been doing different stuff. I've started playing football, basketball, studying languages and so on. What do you do outside of boxing?
Um, I just kind of like I just like to enjoy life, really. You know, like I like to travel as much as I can. Obviously, that's kind of out the window at the moment, but I can still kind of travel to places around Britain. Like my girlfriend's Welsh, so we go up to Wales quite a bit and enjoy the scenery. She's got family in Scotland. I like to go up to Scotland, and like I like to go through, like, obviously it's full of like forests and fields and so on. So I just like to go off into the forest with her nephews, and like we go, well, her nephew likes to hunt animals, but obviously I'm an animal lover. So I say to him that we're going to hunt animals when really I'm just going to look at them, and he just chases them and then scares them off. But I just like to be kind of like at one with nature. I just like to go out and see and explore. But I also like to chill at home sometimes and game. I'm quite a big gamer, so I like to do that as well. No, I'm very active. Like I'm very sporty. I like to play football. I used to be really good at volleyball. I was in the college volleyball team when I was younger. Like
Okay.
any sport, if you tell me you're going to play a sport, I'll happily come along and play it, and I'll probably be pretty good at it because I'm quite naturally gifted when it comes to sports. Like, yeah, I just like to enjoy life, really.
That's good to hear. Also, I've gone running with you before. We've sparred before, so I know you're a very fast runner. And also,
Yeah,
I've sparred you. You're very tricky. You throw punches from very awkward angles. So yeah,
yeah,
I know what you're capable of, and yeah, I look forward to sort of doing stuff with you in future, whether it's sparring, football, or running. But yeah, it's
yeah.
always good seeing you, Jack, and we'll talk
You
again
too,
soon,
mate.
I expect. Thanks
Yeah,
for
of
your
course,
time.
man. Of course. No worries, mate. Anytime.
Cheers.
Yes.